new muscle memory, right? Like, it's like when you move to a new house and you accidentally turn left to go to your old house.
And you walk into the wall.
Right? Or you like, yes, walk into the wall at night, right?
Yeah.
It's like, we never beat ourselves up for that though. Like, we don't say like, what's wrong with me? Why did I turn left? I don't live here anymore. I'm such a loser.
Right.
But that's exactly what we do when we're trying to change a default setting.
Right.
Is our brain offers us the old thought and the old narrative. And we're like, what is wrong with me? I should be past this. I thought I got breakthrough. I thought I got healing. But the truth is we're just learning a new way, and it takes the brain 63 days to create a new default setting. And so in between, there's going to be times you're running into the wall and turning left when you should be turning right. And I think radical acceptance is knowing that that's coming from thoughts, knowing that that's creating feelings, and letting go of all the judgment over those thoughts and feelings.
I feel like we just need to take a deep breath in that, like a sigh of relief. I feel like, Heather, you always turn the lights on. That's an amazing way of talking about it. Can you tell all of us, why 63 days? Why not 60? Why not 64? Why 63?
Well, okay. Dr. Caroline Leaf, she's a Christian neuroscientist, and she talks about how the brain forms habits. People always have said like 21 days, right? Like 21 day fix. Like, lots of people have heard that before.
Yeah.
But to actually create a new neural pathway. So literally there's these tiny little pathways in our brains. You can visually see them.
Right.
And the time it takes, they've just tested it, and the time it takes to actually create a new neural pathway and for the old one to die is literally 63 days. So it's basically 3 rounds of that 21 days.
Wow. That's amazing.
And so the cool thing with that is that you could have been thinking and feeling a certain way for 35 years. And then if you're like, pick one thought and intentionally think it for 63 days, you can create a new default setting. And after that time, your brain will naturally offer you that option instead. But you can't do any of that without radical acceptance.
You can't.
Because you don't know what you're changing if you don't know what you're changing, right?
Yeah.
Like, and if we're afraid, and I think it's even spiritualized, right? Like anxiety. I see people posting like on Instagram about how like anxiety is the enemy and anxiety is not my friend and anxiety is a liar. I'm like, anxiety is not a liar. Anxiety is telling you something really important about
really important
what's
information
going on for you.
And
if you don't listen to it and you just deny it and resist it and judge it, it will keep running the show. It doesn't just go away. So
it's true. It's so true. I feel anytime that I am able to practice it, and it's so internal. Like, so I can spend days wrapped up in a thought that that I'm not even aware of. Most of our thinking happens in our subconscious mind, not in our conscious
60,000 thoughts a day.
And there we have it.
60,000.
And here we are in a time where a lot of us our natural cycles, our cycles have been interrupted, and some of us have, you know, for the first time maybe in a long time, been probably not parents of young children at this point, but alone with our thoughts at some point. Whether or not it's actually physically alone with our thoughts, it could be in the loneliness in the chamber of our own life, our own heart, our own sanctuary. And we actually can start to hear them. It's like things like this surface, the sub-narrative that has been programmed into us from the time we were little. It's absorbed more than it's heard. There are thoughts in my stream of consciousness, in my thinking, in my subconscious thoughts that were never consciously told to me. There are little clusters of belief systems that were more absorbed and felt than ever said out loud. And that is predominantly how we live. That's where we live from. We live from that place, and we impose that screening on the rest of the world. It's almost like we're all in a school play, and we are looking for people to help heal us. So we want them to play certain characters in our school play, and we'll impose situations and circumstances over and over until we get the result that we're looking to get to actually try to change the ending of the story.
Yeah.
And so we have habits, we have patterns with friends, we have that we'll relive the same pattern with people over and over, in an attempt to, like, it's almost it's tragic and it's comedy. It's deep and light. It's, I think, looking at the world as though, because I grew up in a small town, I grew up on a farm and close to a small town, and I was like, as I started making my way in the world and living in different cities and bigger cities, every city I feel like I've lived in has felt like a bigger representation of the same small town mentality. We're all a small town. To me, I feel like there's even living in LA now, it still feels like there are small towns within small towns within small towns, and everywhere I go, I find myself seeing the narrative that I impose on my surroundings. So,
well, and our brain does that on purpose because it likes patterns, because patterns are just efficient.
Yes.
So it's not even like it's doing it for some existential reason.
No.
It's like, how can I burn the least calories? Because we used to have to just survive. And the way we would survive best is by conserving energy. And it's not energy conserving to think a new thought. Yeah. It takes more energy. And so that happens.
Oh my God. What? Are you okay? No wonder I have a hard time exercising. I'm thinking so many thoughts.
You're burning so many calories. Except that when you're thinking the same ones over and over, it's not as much energy that you're burning. Right. So if you really want to get your burn on, try on some new thoughts.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's that pattern thing that happens. There's a part of our brain which is the prover, and the prover always looks for evidence to prove what we currently believe true to be true. And so the crappy thing with that is we keep getting more and more evidence that proves our belief true, and that belief is often one that's not serving us. Right. And we don't want to switch to a new belief because we're like, I don't have evidence for it.
Yeah, we're more comfortable in the familiarity, even if it's a punishing thought.
Yes, but the only way we'll get new evidence, and here's the key, like, this just blows my mind. The only way we'll get new evidence is if we first think a new thought. Because then our brain will go to work to try to prove that true. Right. And that's what I think, like, when the Bible talks about faith as small as a mustard seed, or when it talks about, like, faith as being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we cannot see. Like, once I learned this, it took on a whole new meaning to me that, like, me being able to believe that it could be different is the evidence. It's the actual proof that something could be different.
Oh. Say it a little louder for all of us in the back. This explains too, for me, because I have found hypnotherapy to be very, very helpful. And let me explain that a little bit. Because I throw that word out and then
throw that bomb out there.
Think that I'm like being told to cluck like a chicken. That's not it. What I have found has been extremely healing, because you're talking about introducing a new thought and actually giving your brain time to connect to the thought and start to believe it. Yeah. And the most open we are to new information is when we are asleep. We are the most vulnerable to new input and the most open to new information. So if we put on affirmations while we are in the most relaxed state that we can be in, our subconscious mind actually begins to believe it. So it can be something like, so I say hypnotherapy. I was listening to a hypnotherapist. I listened to him off and on over the last couple of years, and it is basically just a short visualization meditation before I go to sleep. That just rests me, puts my mind at ease, because our minds often race at night. Yeah. When laying in bed, that's finally when our minds are like, finally, now we can have a talk about everything that has ever happened in your life, everything that's happening in the world, the economy that's collapsing, like it's just, our brains go to work, right? And so I have found that this particular one that a friend sent me was about breaking codependency. And at the time I was like, oh my gosh, if I can get healing in my sleep, count me in. This is just more bang for my buck. I'll take it. And
can I also exercise in my sleep?
I can also exercise in my sleep. And so I would put it on every night, and it was about half an hour long, and it was about my own agency of being. It was a visualization picture of going into a meadow, into a clearing, and how there's this designed clearing there that's specifically for me to inhabit. And it's my own life, my own thoughts, my own emotions, my own person, right? But in codependency, it's really hard to tell what's yours, mine, and ours. And I found that actually listening to it for, a year straight, pretty much, every morning I would wake up, feeling extremely rested. B, I have a hard time waking up. I'm not one of those people who like jumps out of bed and I'm like, wow, a new day. Can you believe it?
That's totally me.
That is you. And I so love my friends who are. I think they're literally angels. I don't know where you come from. I find that it takes me about half the day to get to that place. But when I'm in a practice of actually starting my day at night, this also works. It helped me to understand that in the Hebrew calendar, they start their days at night. So their day begins with rest. It doesn't begin at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. when they jump out of bed and they're like, okay, we got to get going. It actually, how you go to bed, how you end the day before is the beginning. That's how you're preparing for the next day. And so I think thinking about it that way, I would start to think that my day was starting in the evening, and I wanted to start it with a new thought, with a thought of really simply giving me back my freedom as a person to think my own thoughts and to inhabit my life. And it was full of affirmations, you're worthy of goodness, you're worthy of love, all these things that I can read in scripture and look in the mirror and tell myself. But when I'm awake and doing that, I have conscious disruptors that come in and challenge the thought. So I have equal amount of energy that's going to trying to believe something, and then a disruptor that's also costing me energy. Whereas when I'm asleep and someone is telling me, you're beautiful. not in that voice, but you're worthy of love, you're worthy of goodness, you are lovable, you're kind, you can take up space, for someone like we talked about earlier who is kind of a hider and a turtle and has a hard time taking up space in a room. To have that kind of narrative changing while I'm sleeping, I actually found myself starting to believe it. And testing out that belief would be in other challenges when I would normally be triggered by something or challenged by something, where the old thought pattern would be there'd be a new one in place. And I would be like, well, this is new.
Isn't it amazing when that happens?
Yeah.
That happened to me the other day with my husband. Like, usually when we have like an argument, I just am like so combative. I'm like, I've got the right line to say as soon as he's done, and the right question, and always out-argue him. And he had said something, and my brain offered me, what are you going to make this mean?
Wow.
And I was like, what the heck? Who was that? And it was a thought that I had been consciously working on for a couple of months. And all of a sudden my brain was like defaulting to that.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap, I have so much power right now to not just defend myself, to allow him to have his moment, to speak his heart and not be thinking it's about me. It was just so powerful. And I love what you're saying too about the subconscious and how it shifts when we're not in that attack mode or that fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
And that we can even do that during the day. I mean, the sleep part sounds amazing. And people are asking what that meditation is. Do you know who that's by?
I can find.
Okay. While you do that, I'm going to keep talking. What was I saying? Oh yeah. When we're in that fight or flight mode, our brain won't take in new information because it doesn't feel safe. Right? So we have to wait until the intensity of the emotion passes. And I think of it kind of like a wave. When the emotion comes, I'm like, okay, this is a wave. And if I don't fight it, it'll spit me out on the other side, as opposed to if I'm fighting it so hard. And for me, not fighting it looks like breathing through it. It looks like narrating to myself what it feels like in my body, to try and really be embodied in that moment.
Yeah.
And then when the intensity of it passes, that's when I can go, okay, what was I thinking that created that emotion? Do I want to shift that? How can I shift it? But another thing I tell people is like, think the thought when you don't need it. Like if you're working on a new thought,
Yeah.
think it when you're brushing your teeth,
Yeah.
think it when you go for a walk, think it when you're cooking dinner. And then when you get in the situation where you are triggered,
Yeah.
it will be there for you. It's like
Yeah.
working out. It
Yeah.
actually is. You go to the gym and lift that little dumbbell, not because you know you're gonna like need that muscle, but then when you're like lifting your groceries one day, you're like, oh, I can do this easily because when I didn't need it, I was working this muscle.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. That's the practical application of
Oh, that's
the
amazing.
amazing things you're saying.
We need the practical application. We also have baby brain cells that are born every day and waiting for new information to be given to them. Like literally waiting for a thought to think. And
Wow.
so pairing that with actually having meditated while I was sleeping at night, it feels like I'm able to give them a good piece of information to contemplate, rather than waking up and going, oh God, another day. Here we are in quarantine. Wonder how long the pandemic is going to last. Oh, deep breath, and those are all, all realities that we're facing. But if coming out of asleep to awake, there's that moment in between where those brain cells are looking for something to think about this day and about this life and about another, chance we get to walk around the world. And so if I can give them something, that's why even the gratitude journal makes so much sense for me. Getting in a practice of, that's the first thing I reach for in the morning, not my phone. It's the first thing. It's become the natural thing to reach for first thing in the morning. And it does only take 5 minutes. And it's even just thinking about the night and morning of routine of that, to start my day at night, writing in it about what could have made today even better. Because some days actually are just really amazing days. And I'm like, I don't even know. Maybe I'll get up a bit earlier tomorrow, or I'll drink more water tomorrow, or whatever it would be. And, but it starts with gratitude in both ways, and it just has a ripple effect.
Yeah. Well, I like what you were saying before about like how we like sometimes we use gratitude as like almost a weapon to beat ourselves up.
Right.
And so, for me, I also do a little morning routine. Mine's 10 minutes though.
Oh.
And the only difference is essentially I start mine with like a thought download. So just like, how am I currently feeling and thinking?
Oh, wow.
And get that all out and give that space. And that again is like a radical acceptance piece for me, because I'm like, before I get into like trying to make myself feel better, which is sometimes what we do with gratitude. We're like, how can I get out of the pain? I know I can't be anxious and grateful at the same time. So I'll just go to the grateful as quick as I can. So I do like a thought download of like, I currently feel stressed out, or I feel nervous about this conversation, or I feel like I've been looping on this thought all the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
And then after that's all out, then I go to gratitude.
Yeah.
And it does shift things for me so much, but it doesn't shift it without acknowledging that like, this is where I'm really at right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I find that little piece helpful too, to like, just to give it space. And I remember when this was like 5 years ago, when I was in the middle of like my anxiety and stuff, and you and I met up in Seattle. You had a show there and we sat on the seawall and I was talking to you about like my mess and like just how I had so much shame over being messy. Oh my goodness, we only have 2 minutes left and then we have to stop.
Oh my gosh.
There's a time limit on this. But anyways, I just remember like this powerful picture that you shared with me of like, I was in this room and there was paint cans all over the wall. Do you remember this?
Yep.
And Jesus came in and he like started shaking the shelves and all the paint cans were falling off the walls and like paint was splattering everywhere. And I was sitting there like, what's going on? And then he like sat down in it with me and started like painting this beautiful picture around me. And it was just this like crazy realization of like, the mess is beautiful and the mess is part of it, and accepting the mess and acknowledging that it's there and not thinking that something's wrong with me because it's there. That's where this whole process really starts.
Wow.
Thank you for teaching me that.
Oh my gosh, Heather. Well, anytime. Just kidding. The same goes out to you. I feel like the lights come on every time we talk. You have such a brilliant way of distilling paragraphs and roundabout ways of talking and into something that actually is digestible and like we can practice it. I feel like I walk away with practices every time, which is amazing.
Oh, I love that.
Should we do this again?
We should do this again. I had so much fun, and we didn't get to the 20 questions that people had, so I'm very sorry. I only have 24 seconds before it'll be over, so let's do it again. I love you so much.
Thank you for too.
Sharing your heart and your wisdom. You are the queen of black, says Ina. It's true. She is.
We love all of you. Thanks for joining us and hanging out.
And we'll see you again.
So good. See you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.